Hi everyone, it's Srija, and I'm a high schooler learning how to code, and I hope in the process you learn code too. Subscribe if you want for more tech-related videos. In this video, I'll be sharing 6 ways that you can keep up in a coding bootcamp or class. Tip number 1 is a project that you want to build after class or during class, or any kind of creative project that you would like to do with code. And this may be a simple or complex project, but the point is to make you think about code in a way that it's supposed to be used. And by that I mean, like, code isn't something like, multiplication tables. Like, you can't just memorize it and expect to be a whiz or a genius at it. Like, you have to apply it to certain projects, and that's how you get good at it, because it's a creative field. So, for example, you can replicate something that exists in real life, like maybe a Google Maps app, or maybe like an online ordering app, or like Uber Eats or something like that. And when you think of a project like that during class to build, you will start to analyze how exactly an app is built, or a website is built. Like, you will break down the parts. Like, okay, I need data for food options, I need data for location, I need to find a way to make the user interact with the website. It's all those elements that really ultimately make up and better your journey in tech. And this way you are utilizing the code instead of just memorizing it just for the test and forgetting everything anyway. My second tip is to always have a note-taking strategy that you can always rely on, even when you feel like you're not motivated to study or learn. A lot of going through boot camp or class and how you measure your success is really an understanding of code. So a lot of progressing with how the code works, and like really analyzing it and really understanding the brains of it, and understand other ways to do the same type of concept. And that is how you will progress, because I didn't do that at the beginning. When I was learning Python, I would just do the tutorials and call it a day. I didn't really understand why it works, why there were 2 parameters instead of 1, why were there arguments for this function and no arguments for the other function. So you really want to make sure why. And next, I'll be sharing 3 note-taking strategies that you can do that I've tried that have helped me and that require almost no effort. The first note-taking strategy is just annotating directly on the resources or slideshows or notes that your teacher provided you, if your teacher did provide you notes. So that way they provide the notes and all you have to do is make sure you understand them. And this note-taking strategy, it's a little easy to fall into the laziness aspect of it, because you can quickly just say, oh yeah, I have the notes, I don't need to write notes, and that just is a recipe for disaster. So what you do is you take the slideshow, whatever notes you have, you can either download them, put them on a Google Doc. There's this Chrome extension, Cami, that my school uses a lot, where you can directly annotate on the document. And what you want to do is, while the teacher is lecturing, make sure you understand what the teacher's talking about and where the notes are, and so you can write down what the teacher is saying if an example or the way he explains it is better than what the notes he provided does. So this way you have multiple resources to make you on track. And with the code examples, make sure you write an example that you understand and in a language that you understand. Usually, oftentimes, these slideshows have like really complicated language or like definitions that you don't really understand, and that's when you need to annotate. That's when you need to annotate what the teacher says, because the teacher will say it in a way that you can understand. That is an easy way to understand. So you have to annotate what the teacher says, if it makes more sense in a way that they explained it, and analyze the code examples that they gave, and make sure you understand why and what each line of code is doing. The second note-taking strategy is what I like to call the smart study guide strategy. But whenever the teacher is giving a lecture, just spam write notes in a way that you can understand and go back to later. It doesn't completely have to be super organized, because when you're just spamming, you're just honestly writing what the teacher says and just typing it down. It's honestly like a passive form of note-taking, but I find it's the fastest way to get the information down so I don't forget it. if there's a little break in your lecture, or if you understand what the teacher is saying, go back to your notes, and above that little section, try to organize like a little highlight or bold any key words, and in front of that section, on top of that section, write like a little question that describes what the key concepts of that little section of code is. So for example, if I went to a lecture about functions, I would spam write all the stuff that the lecturer is saying about functions, and then not after the class, but like in the lecture itself, I would put like a little question above that and say like, what are the purpose of functions? Give me an example of the syntax of functions, stuff like that. So you can go back and quiz yourself after. And it's an easier way of the Cornell method online, because online you can't really make like a table, or not as fast, and I really don't want to do that setup. It's an easier way to go back and reference back to the questions that you are not as comfortable with, or make sure you understand every single concept. The last note-taking strategy is the guided note strategy. And I use this one fairly often, and what I do is I go over the material a few hours before the lecture, probably like, not even a few hours, probably like 10 minutes before, or like the night before if I'm free, which is never, but I write down little fill in the blank sentences like, functions do blank, and like during the lecture I would fill in those blanks and provide an example. So in the way, you are kind of referencing back ways that you can quiz yourself. So like, if I wrote functions are reusable blocks of code, and the reusable blocks of code would be in the blank, I would go back and like hide all those blanks and say, what do functions do? And like quiz myself. And for the code examples, I would put them in a different color than the rest of your notes and analyze them using code comments or whatever method that you work. And the way you analyze code examples is state like, what was the general reason for doing that? What does this variable stand for? What do these functions stand for, and what will they output? That's generally my formula for analyzing code. And if you don't have a lot of time on hand, you can always try during the lecture to write your notes in a way that you can go back and understand. Don't just do different colors or copy word for word what the lecturer says, otherwise you will not understand it. So like if the lecturer is saying, functions do this, here's an example. Do the same thing, like functions do blank, and then just type in reusable blocks of code. This is like an easier way of the Smart Study Guide method without writing the questions, so you can reference them back later. And my third tip is ask questions. Now, you hear everyone saying this, but this one is literally a given. Like, anytime you're stuck, just ask straight away. If you are that person, and I sometimes am this person, you're a little afraid to ask a question, I suggest breaking down what you've done so far. So try this. Take a break for like 30 seconds and try to release any anger, frustration, anything with whatever problem you're facing on or whatever concept you don't understand. Make a mental note or physically write down all the stuff that you tried to make whatever it is you're understanding. So if you're lost in understanding concept, say that you reference back to a similar concept and you didn't understand how that fit into this one, or if you're trying to debug something, say all the ways that you tested your code but you still haven't found the answer. And next, try to do a different approach and look for tiny details like a missing semicolon or a sentence that you forgot to read, anything that would help you make the situation better. If that doesn't work, ask your question. Now's the time. And in your question, say all the things that you tried to make it work. Say all the things how you just didn't give up and ask a question. Say all the things that you went through, all the steps that you went through, and then you ask your question. My fourth tip is try to get ahead at any time you can. See if the teacher has any PowerPoints that they made, or ask them personally to post the PowerPoints ahead of time. And if they don't, that's okay, no worries. You can just follow along, or you can also go take a course on that topic instead. Resources like Codecademy, Free Codecamp, W3 Schools are great ways. And the reason why you want to get ahead, to really make sure you understand, so once the teacher introduces it to you, you don't have to feel as lost, like it hit you in the face, you know? Like you can be familiar with it. And if you have a question about a specific topic, you can bring it up during the lecture. And like I said, you don't want to go deep dive into all the topics because that would be impossible and who has time for that. So you want to read the major concepts, make sure you understand how they work a little bit, and the major syntax, stuff like that. Make a few ideas about a mini project with that topic because you know you're gonna get lost and you need the practice. So figure out, go on GitHub, go on Google, figure out what projects that you can use with those topics during the class. Tip number 5 is to work together with your classmates or whoever's in your boot camp. And if you don't like them, I'm sorry about that, but either share notes, you can study important concepts together, you can work on mini projects together. It's just a way, and this is also a skill that you need for the future. If you don't like talking to people, you don't have to. You can email them, you don't have to talk. You can go on GitHub, you can collaborate there. But at some point in your class or camp, make sure you collaborate with someone. It could also be an older student who took the class, and you can collaborate on a mini project with them, or you can ask questions with them. Like, it doesn't have to be full-on collaboration. It could just be asking questions, just interacting with other people, so you get different perspectives, you get help from where you can find it. The last tip is to have a strategy in case you do fall behind. And more than often not, once the class gets more challenging, you will find yourself feeling a little bit lost and the work keeps piling on and on and on. But one thing you can do is pre-record lectures or save or archive PowerPoint slideshows, your notes in a way that you can easily access and it's a way that you can easily understand. And watch or read over the concept that you are not familiar with. And so what I like to do when I'm in that unit itself, I highlight concepts that I'm not totally 100% sure on, so when I can go back onto it, I can easily find all the topics that I wasn't that comfortable with. Then after that, you practice more on those topics because reading over the notes, that's just passive studying. It's not gonna help you. You're just gonna forget it anyway. So you have to practice on those topics. And for that, mini projects are the way to go. Or little 10-minute, 15-minute exercises you can find on W3 Schools. I think W3 Schools is a really great resource because whatever topic they have like a tutorial or try me section, and you can do that to play around with the code, see what you're not getting, anything like that. Free Code Camp, Code Academy, anything. And you can also go on GitHub to find little mini projects with those concepts, or whatever project that you're building on your own, you can use more of those concepts in your project and see how you can incorporate them and get more familiar with them. And when you're falling behind, you also do have to make sure you understand what the class is currently on, even though you're feeling lost on past topics. So here's a strategy that you don't fall behind even further. So a lot of programming builds on each other, like math, like you have to know how to make a graph in order to go to algebra 2, you know, it builds on each other and it's like code. So you learn with the basics, get more familiar with it. So your best bet is to review the basic concepts, stuff that you're not sure on. Like if you don't have that foundation, you cannot understand the harder concepts. Like you cannot know how to do multi-step equations without learning multiplication. You can't do that. So understand the concepts, and what you can do, you can pull past examples, past tests, ask your teacher, set aside time to ask your teacher, what exactly do you not understand? Can you explain this in a more easier way? Practice, anything like that, because you need to understand the foundation before you figure out anything else. Place extra time to practice those concepts outside of class because otherwise you're not really gonna understand it, and make it like a fun way, like make it like a mini project, maybe make it like a game night of like code trivia or something like that. It could be really fun. So I hope that helped anyone who's struggling in a coding camp or a boot camp, anything like that. And thanks for watching, and I hope you come back next Sunday for a new video.